You don't look rich. That's not an accident. You have $8.3 million in a brokerage account, a paid-off house in a neighborhood nobody would describe as impressive, and a car with 74,000 miles on it you bought used 4 years ago for $11,200. You are sitting in that car right now in the parking lot of the same grocery store you've gone to every Thursday for 6 years. The cashier knows your name. She knows you take your coffee black. She has watched you buy the same $9 rotisserie chicken every Thursday for 6 years, and she has never once had any reason to think about you differently than she thinks about anyone else who walks through that door. She has no idea about the number. Nobody does. And here is the part most people never understand. You didn't arrive at this by accident. You built it this way deliberately over 11 years, through decisions that looked like nothing from the outside and built everything from the inside. You learned something early that most people spend their entire lives getting wrong. Looking wealthy and being wealthy are two entirely different jobs. You can only work one of them at a time. You chose long ago. You have never reconsidered. You grew up watching people work the wrong one. Your neighbor financed a new Lexus every 3 years. Your uncle wore a watch that cost more than your first month's rent. Bought on a credit card at 22% interest he carried longer than he would ever admit out loud. The people around you who looked the most successful were, in almost every measurable way, the least financially secure. Thomas Stanley spent 20 years studying over 11,000 high-net-worth Americans and found something that should have permanently changed how the world thinks about wealth. The people with the most actual money clustered in middle-class neighborhoods, not wealthy zip codes, not addresses anyone would associate with the word millionaire. You know the type. No gate, no fountain, nothing to suggest anything was building inside. Big hat, no cattle. You understood that phrase at 24, sitting in a break room at a job paying $17 an hour, watching a coworker describe the Range Rover he was about to finance for $1,100 a month. You did the math in 12 seconds. He was about to spend $13,200 a year to look like he had money he didn't have. You were about to put that same $1,100 into an index fund every month and tell absolutely no one. You were about to do this quietly for 11 years, without announcing it, without inviting anyone to confirm it was working. Confirmation was never what you were building toward. You didn't say anything that day. You never do. March. Your accountant sits across from you at a folding table and reads your portfolio summary for the 3rd time. She's been doing this for 23 years. She does not impress easily. She looks up and says something you will think about for a long time afterward. She says you dress like someone who works for you. She means it as a mild observation. You take it as the most accurate thing anyone has said to you in a professional setting in years. Because she is right. The fleece you're wearing cost $47 at a sporting goods store 4 years ago on clearance. The person in the next office wears a plain white t-shirt that costs $340. You looked it up once after someone mentioned the brand. His car in the lot has a matte gray custom wrap. Yours has a crack in the rear bumper you've been meaning to fix for 7 months. You have more money than he does, significantly more. And here is what almost nobody in personal finance explains clearly about that gap. Researchers who study luxury consumption found that inconspicuous goods send a more sophisticated signal to people who actually understand what they're looking at. A Loro Piana cashmere piece costs $2,000 and carries no logo anywhere on it. The person who owns one doesn't need you to know. The person who needs you to know is wearing something half the price, with a logo twice the size. You are not invisible to everyone. You are invisible to the wrong people. Those people are exactly the ones you don't want reading you. The wrong people are expensive in ways that have nothing to do with money. Visible wealth changes every room you enter in ways that cost more than most people calculate. You spend months wondering whether the person across from you values you or the number behind you. A cousin surfaces on a schedule that tracks uncomfortably close to whenever something positive appears in your life. Dinners arrive where the check lands, and a particular silence settles across the table, and you know exactly what that silence is calculating. You decided a long time ago that you were done paying the entrance fee for it. You have watched what happens when the number gets out. You have seen it in other people's lives before it happened in yours. A colleague crossed 1 million at 31 and told his brother. The brother called 4 times in the following month. The calls were warm, curious, catching up. By the 4th call, there was a business idea. You watched the friendship change shape in real time and you filed it away. The relationship didn't end. It just became a different kind of relationship, one where both of them knew something had shifted and neither of them would say it out loud. So you drive the car with the cracked bumper. You go to the same store on the same day every week. You wear the fleece from the sporting goods store. And the things that actually compound, the positions that grow while you sleep, the assets that solve real problems without requiring your presence, those you build quietly and tell no one about. Research from Oklahoma State found something uncomfortable about how most people think about wealth. The average person believes the wealthy are more competent and more satisfied with their lives. This connection means people feel pressure to perform what they assume wealth looks like from outside. If you believe successful people don't eat at their desks, eating from a container starts to feel like failure, even when nobody is watching. You perform success. You perform the version of wealth absorbed from movies and social media and the uncle with the watch. Almost always borrowed money dressed as a rival, someone else's debt performing a role it was never built to sustain. You stopped performing a long time ago. What you do instead has a name. Researchers call it prodigious accumulation. The formula is simple. Multiply your age by your annual pre-tax income, divide by 10. That is your minimum net worth target if you are building correctly. Most people with strong incomes never reach it. Not because the income isn't there, because the gap between what they earn and what they keep is filled entirely with performance, with the financed Lexus, with the watch at 22%, with the $340 t-shirt that signals success entirely in other people's perceptions and appears nowhere on any balance sheet that matters. You cross that number at 34. Nobody threw you a party. Nobody noticed at all. September. You are standing in the same line at the same store. The cashier asks how your week is going. You say fine. She says you always say fine. You smile. She has no idea you reviewed a summary this morning showing $8.3 million across 4 accounts. She has no idea the car outside is paid off. She has no idea the house you left is owned outright by the person who just handed her a $9 chicken and said, fine, fine. That is the word. And here's the thing that took the longest to fully understand. The invisibility is not the sacrifice you make in order to build the wealth. The invisibility is the reward the wealth earns you. The man with the $340 t-shirt pays a recurring fee just to be perceived correctly by strangers. You pay nothing to be left exactly as you are. You are left exactly as you are. And that, it turns out, is the precise condition under which wealth compounds without friction, without the cost of maintaining a performance, without the tax visibility places on every room you enter, every conversation where someone calculates your number before learning your name. You have $8.3 million. The cashier wishes you a good Thursday. You carry the chicken to the car with the cracked bumper and drive home. Nobody knows. That was never the problem. That was always the plan. Wealth, money, and the lives behind the numbers.